All right, give thanks. Let me just thank the I Never Knew TV team, to facilitate in this presentation. This is actually a presentation I made a couple of years ago still. Seeing, I've been doing some work myself and my team from the Center for Entrepreneurship Thinking and Practice at UWI. Referred to myself as the Marcus Garvey Scholars. I've been doing some work on what Marcus Garvey has done. Finds a lot of the work on Marcus Garvey really emerged from people involved from a socio-political lens. So I'm speak a lot about Marcus Garvey, issues surrounding governance, and establishing our own political party, but also establishing systems to support the development of INI people. But it's mainly through that sociological and that political lens that a lot of scholarship has been done. So if you check a bridging like Professor Rupert Lewis, really good bridging, have a very open door policy for students. Rupert Lewis and Carter and a number of other persons have done a lot of writings that I can make some reference to in terms of Marcus Garvey. But what we want to do, what I want to do specifically, is to highlight Marcus Garvey work in terms of entrepreneurship, because that bridging creating a model over 100 years ago, which I find is extremely relevant now. Certain things have changed, the context have changed. So we look at some of those things was an extremely important model. And I think that having what you call grounded scholarship is important. I also did this presentation because I find that in Jamaica, they used to argue that when you come to the University of the West Indies, either Rastafari, Virgin, or you're a man who would deal with some kind of politics. So a lot of them were leftists. So as a youth, I had tried to examine. So why is it that the man never penetrate Marcus Garvey work? Because I remember Alan Bernard. Bridging one of the most committed youth who I know in terms of community development. Was actually one of the lead program driven person in USA and thing. Now I see him run as him running election in flankers. Yeah, but like, there's so much work. But yeah, we're doing a lot of work and we're saying to ourselves, how is it that we don't see the man them really looking at Marcus Garvey's model? Why the people at the university never adopted the person who do economics in particular? Because I was doing my master's in economics and everything they're still seeing. I did my master's in economics. I was saying, why never use Marcus Garvey model? Because we're always saying they need a model that can endogenize growth, which means that they want to ensure that the growth is anchored within your own reality and your own control and things. Like you want a growth that when the money is generated, it stay amongst the mass of the people. Because when you talk about money multiplier, that's what is important. How much money is circulating in a particular space, it increases the potential to support and generate a sustainable source of wealth. See, so that you really want. And when we look at Marcus Garvey work, I say, but Marcus Garvey this model. I was told that some of the men never accept it because they say Marcus Garvey never have a model. And I say, eh? And in saying that, them also argue that them adopted some leftist ideology, like Marxist theories, because I'm saying that a model. As a youth Christian, because I know Karl Marx was a man who didn't like black people. The man was a racist. And so that was something we always in our head that try to resolve. Why the man him never look at it? And I come to the fullness that education can be like that still. Seeing when you're too trained, you sometimes look only for things that are accepted formally already within the scholarship. But then you ask yourself, who is going to accept a model from Marcus Garvey in a scholarship and a research space that is governed by certain people who emerge out of that colonial and benefit from that colonial heritage? Because all major journals are still governed by people who come from Euro-American societies and things still, who have their own ways and their own models. They now just accept Marcus Garvey model and say, okay, this is a model that is this or that. So I learned that you have to write your own scholarship. And so my focus of my scholarship seems to be on Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the Caribbean diaspora. I'm not trying to do research to try to break into Europe and America. Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the Caribbean diaspora, and the farthest it will go is into Africa, because we promote the South-South Sustainable Development Model, what was about Marcus Garvey and Haile Selassie I dealt with, where Marcus Garvey was consolidating the diaspora and the Caribbean, and certain places in Central and South America, while Haile Selassie was doing the work on the continent. So that is our primary focus. See, we're not trying to influence no scholarship in Europe and America. What I'm saying is that I and I as a people need to look at our own models, look at our own people brain and learn to appreciate them brain, so what we can learn and what we can contextualize. And the beauty about this thing is that Marcus Garvey faced the same situation at the turn of the century, in the early 1900s, similar to what we were seeing right here. I remember say at the turn of the century, you had World War I, similar to what you have war taking place now. Yeah, I think it was the Spanish flu that came out, similar to what you have the COVID. There was a slowdown in economic activities, although there was high expectation coming in the turn of the century. Just as we have a slowdown in activities now. Very similar conditions what Marcus Garvey recognized at the end of World War I that other ships were being sold. And there was a big discussion about Africa being the source of wealth. Just as we have the thing with Africa being the source of wealth now, because I remember that prior to that, in the late 1800s, they had the split up of Africa. But Marcus saw where with ships you could actually engage in trade between South in this area and Africa. I remember Marcus traveled through the whole of the Central and South American places, and a big headquarters in Panama, and to the United States, and so he was a bridge builder at the time. So this presentation has really dedicated to Marcus Garvey. Yeah, so mighty works that he has done and things still as the one who consolidated the diaspora. I'm still at it within the context that this was concurrently the work was being done by Haile Selassie to build out an independent Africa as well. So as a context, you have to know who you're addressing. Seeing? It's not just a millennial kids anymore with coding and robotics. When you talk about generation Z, the I generation and alpha generation, and this generation we call generation Z, them says the most entrepreneurial generation coming about. See, but also moving from an age of belief, which is a Piscean age, which says based on water, fish element, which is emotions, into an Aquarian age, the age will be age of mentalism, which is the age of knowing. I say this is the age of Rastafari, because Rastafari don't believe as in the Piscean age. Rastafari know as in the Aquarian age. And not by coincidence, the symbol for the Aquarian age is the same symbol and put up for Haile Selassie in his coronation in Addis Ababa. You can go and look at it and you'll see it. I'll do another presentation which is called Haile Selassie, the golden meaning the Aquarian age. We'll look at that at the secret geometry things surrounding Haile Selassie in Ethiopia. And Haile Selassie being a kind of stargate to know for I and I to move to different dimensions and things in terms of consciousness. See, we're moving away from what is called the Millennium Development Goals to the Sustainable Development Goals. And we know the 17 SDGs, where the first 5 foundation principles are what? Zero poverty, zero hunger, access to health and wellness, access to education. See, it also speak about gender equity, and of course, a clean and access to clean water and sanitation. See, those are the 6 basic fundamental principles upon which other 11 principles are built in the Sustainable Development Goals. See, but note that in the region, just as in 1492 when Jamaica and the Caribbean became the center of world trade in 1492, and therefore the region was the first global logistics platform in that triangular trade. Because I remember you talk about Africa to the Caribbean and to back into Europe, But remember, the Americas was being developed, so the Caribbean was a central platform, especially Jamaica, where you move from Jamaica and go to all the other places and things. Guyana is a very important land space in terms of the mainland, and Bahamas are the next important land space to get into the United States, primarily through like all that Miami area and things still. People understand the geography more than I. Seeing? But we also know that Marcus had mentioned that the Panama Canal must be expanded. And we see an expansion of the Panama Canal that was completed in 2016. And the purpose of expanding the Panama Canal is was to allow them called the Panamax ships to come through. And these are ships them can hold like thousands, I would say 10,000 of them say containers, but they are 3 times the size of regular ships. They are concerned now though about the Panama Canal because of climate change and waters dropping. All over the globe they have those kind of concerns, but that was the plan and still is the plan because there was an urgency to increase world trade. Just as how the man had built the Panama Canal and open around the same time, I don't know if it's 1914. We need to check that and see if it's 1914. The Panama Canal was open. Seeing? And it expanded 100 years after it expanded. That's in 2016. Seeing? Now, note that within this context, Jamaica have several protected elements. I mean, I think now within the context of climate change, seeing, and how we address things in the environment. This is the context we operate in. So we can't just think about doing things we like. I mean, I think about what we call the blue economy, the orange economy to the culture and creative space. Blue have to do with the seas and ocean related elements. Green economy have to do with land-based agriculture components. And of course, I'm saying blue, green, orange, and silver economy have to do with providing goods and services or persons who are aged. In Europe, them say it's 50. You know, in the Caribbean, that might be a different thing because when you're 50, you're not necessarily an older person by Caribbean standards. But it's a provision of goods and services for persons within that era. But just look at some of that Jamaica alone. The Blue and Drunken Mountains, the Port Royal, Cockpit Country, the Black River Morass, Kingston Creative City, Reggae Global Treasures. You have those things as well. Seeing reggae music. But if you think about the Caribbean, it is even more serious. Because everything will come out of the Caribbean is like a global treasure. See, some of the music and the food, you know, over there at Dominica, I'm amongst the Caliago people who live on, I think, is the east coast of Dominica. Then people there for over 500 years unbroken knowledge. If you go to Guyana, oh, you have all different type of people. You have the history, the Indian culture, the African culture, you have the original people who are there, the indigenous people. I mean, there are so many protected spaces in places like Guyana and Suriname, Belize, which are mainland places. You go to Kaito Falls. See? If you go to St. Vincent, Antigua, everywhere you go in the region, there are so many protected special places. So we have to know that we are speaking about the relevance of Marcus Garvey work in a similar but somewhat different context, because now you are thinking about things like AI, which is both artificial intelligence as well as ancient intelligence, because there's a rise in consciousness in terms of how one relates to the environment and not just economics. So in the discourse, you talk about environmental and social governance framework coming out of COP. Seeing people speaking now about mainstream and the most vulnerable. These are things that Marcus Garvey was doing for INI people. And we have to write in the national MSME policies. You know, so along with speaking to those different kind of economies, orange, blue, green, and silver, we have to say how you use policies to mainstream the most vulnerable across gender, across youths, across persons with disabilities, and centralizing ideas of climate change as part of the strategic planning framework. So you have to be thinking about all these things. See? So note, a lot of the issues that were being addressed by Marcus Garvey at the time, while the face of them might seem a bit different, but the fundamentals of them still remain the same. Inequity across people based on race and color and country and all of these things that man make up. And those who have an abundance of resources are the ones who seem to be less able to transform those resources into meaningful goods and services. So what I'm arguing is that Marcus Garvey was not just an entrepreneur. Seeing? Somebody was establishing business to generate money for herself. That was not the case. Marcus Garvey is more of a social entrepreneur. And a social entrepreneur is a mission-driven individual who seeks to create value, economic, social, cultural, and environmental value, what we call the quadruple bottom line value creation. Yes, as a way of improving the quality of lives of persons. But he must do this by having an independent and diversified income stream. That's why we argue about businesses. So clearly Marcus Garvey, through the UNIA model, had something like that. So we say we established the largest and first formal transnational social enterprise cluster under the UNIA, because Marcus Garvey things stretch across many different countries. That was never done by anybody at all. Nowhere. Even today, you have about over 3 million people as part of an organization without a cell phone. Seeing, and you have about an analog age as against in a digital age now. So you must see the difference. He established the first what we call the crowdfunding platform. You know, as a matter of fact, that is what he was sent to prison for, because he was selling shares in the company. Now we call it crowdfunding. I can get money from anybody. So note, the cluster for the social enterprise, including the mother organization, which is UNIA, the established is called the African Communities League. The African Communities League provided oversight for the businesses. The Black Star Line Shipping Company, which was the biggest company, we call the Negro Scratch Corporation, that holds what we call micro, small, and medium enterprises today, like the factories, the bakeries, etc. I have other enterprises which are like we call nano enterprises, various micro enterprises. So I'm cover all three areas. Not using the same language that I'm using, but you can see in practice. And this, I argue, provide a blueprint for entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship amongst disenfranchised peoples and nations globally. We like to deny these things. So a guy must expect I know to go and get a next person's text, which emerge out of a reality that is fundamentally different from my mind, to use as the information to transfer knowledge to our people. That don't make sense. The history of the Caribbean has been a social entrepreneurial experience. We are always disenfranchised. We have to try to find a way, and we do it very successfully too, through our own creativity and innovativeness. We make situations that seem impossible, not only possible, but above world standards. That is the history of the Caribbean. When we say, well, we turn and make fashion. We create something out of nothing. You know, like I mean, say, if you make blood out of stone or bread out of stone, whichever way we want to use it. But we do those things. See, and that is why Jamaica and many Caribbean have space maybe rank in the world, highest in the world, one of the highest regions in the world in terms of creativity and innovation. And if people want to question it, you will just check. Creativity and innovativeness is best expressed through where? The creative industries, what we call orange economy. So you would think about the global footprint of the Caribbean as a cultural super space. The impact, there's no place on the earth that have proportionally impact that the Caribbean have on the face of the earth in terms of culture. So you have to talk about 25 million people in our space. The land mass is not even anything to talk about. And look at the impact that I have globally. Music, food, sports, fashion, everything that makes up the culture and creative space. Caribbean people is not no regular people. See? So we're saying Marcus Garvey created the model that I think is most crucial. So if you check some of the writings, see Rugdaff them say it, that Marcus Garvey created one of the most useful model, and one of the themes that him capture was the role of entrepreneurship in improving the economic position of black, because you know, say around them time the blacks were disenfranchised. Earlier the man destroyed what they call the Black Wall Street. And his tools at Oklahoma was a very successful business model that was being developed, and the man bomb it up. Seeing? Notice, Lewis argued that although the Marcus Garvey led the largest black movement in history, yet about over 4 million people. Hill also records over 1,000 divisions of the UNIA to the African Communities League worldwide, with 836 in the United States. And this is without an ICT platform. There's what a platform. And there's abundance of scholarship on these things, man. See? So Martin, how about people write some stuff? These are some quotes from Marcus. Say, action, self-reliance, the vision of self and future have been the only means by which the oppressed have seen and realized the light of their own freedom. So you have to have self-reliance and collective security here. So entrepreneurship, that gives you that, you know. So implicitly, this model is built upon entrepreneurship. So without commerce and industry, our people perish economically. And black people are perishing as you have no economic system. You need a capitalist system of your own to combat the heartless capitalist system of the mass white ruling class. So Marcus believed in people owning and operating enterprises. For a better way to use the word capitalist, that implicitly have certain things in it. But the mindset is what is different. That's why we want to make the distinction between a social entrepreneur, because it was on a mission. It wasn't about selfish self-interest, as how we talk about traditional economics here. No, it's about an enlightened self-interest, which means that self-reliance to support collective security. And creating our businesses give us political, economic independence, which is what can give a real political independence. So I'm saying you want black producers, black distributors, black consumers. The world of black can be self-contained. We desire earnestly to deal with the rest of the world, but if the rest of the world does not, we don't need to. We don't need to. So it was clear that Marcus recognized these things, that through having our own economic independence, we can attain what we call SDGs. And see them right there? No poverty, zero hunger. Those people are not going to do this. The world is not short of money or short of resources. It's distribution. So, but if the mindset of the people who go in the space is one of selfish self-interest and believe that the environment is against them and they have to be surviving the fittest to survive, they will not be doing these things. So you have to do these things on your own. You have to establish your own economic system to ensure you have no poverty, no hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, all of these elements that are make up the SDGs. If you're not endogenizing growth, you're not going to get it done. And so we argue that the SDGs had 3 key components. You have economic imperatives, social imperatives, and biodiversity imperatives, which means then, if we don't sort out the economic component, we're going to have a problem. If you look at Marcus Garvey work, when they really started to rise against Marcus, is when they started to establish the businesses, because they become independent. As that Marcus alone, if you look at the work of Howell in Jamaica, Claudius Henry, seeing all of the ones them, once you start, you can talk about philosophy all you want, and them don't have a real big issue. But once you start to generate money that can sustain the practice of the philosophy, then it becomes a problem. See? So, note, you need to examine Marcus Garvey and recognize that Marcus Garvey, UNIA address all these things: economic issues, social issues, biodiversity issues, we call environment. We are talking about the built environment and cultural issues. A lot of scholarship is there on those elements. And so what we're arguing though, that if you want to transform people's life, which is what Marcus was doing through the UNIA, you must be doing something that creates economic value creation, which is what him do the businesses. Social value creation. Remember, him have like the Black Cross nurse, you know. Marcus Garvey had theaters and them thing there. Seeing things that were important for creating the social fabric, create festivals, and keep events. All of these things were being done. You have a program that supported people who needed social security support services as well. And of course, you have environmental value creation. The whole idea about sustaining the natural environment was not so big right then. But your built up environment is going to be important. What you own, how you build your communities. And realize the fact that you want to build sustainable communities was a part of the environmental value creation component as well. So more people know, say, even though the words are not the same, the practice, an ounce of practice is worth a ton of theory. It is a practice. So when I juxtapose this now with what Jamaica is saying, in our Vision 2030 and national goals, no them argue. All Jamaicans are empowered to achieve their fullest potential. And the goal, the outcome number 1 for that is that you have a healthy population. So healthy and safety is one of the biggest things. Goal number 2, the Jamaica society is safe, cohesive, and just. So you have about equity, addressing the social ills that we have. Goal number 3, the economy is prosperous. You have about building out strong economic platforms. And goal number 4, you have an healthy natural environment. It's the same kind of cluster that supports sustainable development you're speaking about right here. But notice, the economy is prosperous. How do you ensure the economy is prosperous? It can't be through foreign direct investment because the money is going to leave. It must be through empowering what you call the micro, small, and medium enterprises, especially small, medium, and non-enterprises, because they are the ones who keep their money in Jamaica, which is what the mother of Marcus Garvey was doing. Even when we think about our measure development now, you know, remember there's a between growth and development. And so we argue that brain out hard can lead to growth, but not sustainable development. You have to think with your brain, put in place the systems to generate the growth. But the decision must be made with your heart, because if you move past growth to development, growth is about money. Development is about life and people access to what we call the fundamentals that improve the quality of life. Just as we have the SDGs, proper food, proper health care, proper education, water and sanitation, the environment is clean, access to relevant technology. Those are the crucial things. So when we speak, they have shifted the development model, measurement, from regular GNP, which is gross national product, which is the total value of all goods and services produced in the country within a year, to looking at things in the Social Progress Index by Porter from 2014. Now look at basic human needs, foundation of well-being, and of course, opportunities. Jamaica, at the time when I did this research, was ranked 51 out of 132 countries, although which have higher per capita incomes than Jamaica. So we're speaking about here, nutrition and basic medical care, water and sanitation, shelter, personal safety. These are the same issues Marcus Garvey were addressing amongst black people 100 years ago. Access to basic knowledge, information and communication. Remember, Marcus had the newspaper, you know. Health and wellness, he had the Black Cross nurse. Personal rights, it was the middle of human rights is being discussed, on freedom, tolerance and inclusion, access to advanced education. I mean, when you look at this, you can say Marcus Garvey like hundreds of years ahead of many other persons in terms of his interests. Because I don't think Marcus is the only one who had these things to be done now. But he was the one who had the interest in trying to get it done for the people. You know? And so, what really is entrepreneurship? I mean, there's a process of creating value, man, by bringing together a unique set of resources in order to seize an opportunity. And that's why we're always doing it. We bring together land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, which we call the 4 factors of production. I must also know you have what we call FUM, financial resources, human resources, operational resources, and marketing resources. So the social enterprise more look at the creation of the value to address a social issue. So instead of the creation of innovative solutions to immediate social problems. I know that entrepreneurs don't see problems. A problem means there's an unfulfilled need that they can create a good or service to satisfy. Yes? And you have to mobilize ideas, capacity, resources, and social arrangements to support that social transformation. So, what really is a social enterprise? As stated, is a business with a primary social objective whose surpluses, them doing the world profits, are principally reinvested for that purpose in the business or the community, rather than being driven by the needs to maximize profits for shareholders and owners. So the mindset, so that's the more I think again about the UNIA. The business in UNIA was not for Marcus. It was to generate value for the members of the UNIA. That's what I say the man was way ahead of time because we just talk about social enterprises. Although we have written the paper to show that we always have this model with our people from before emancipation. So social enterprise have a very clear social mission. You know, Marcus used the word one God, one aim, one destiny. It is not self-centered. It has to benefit others. That is the UNIA again. How you measure success is different. It's not just money value help and how you improve people's quality of life. What we have done, we have created tools like what we call a social rate of return on investment, where we can monetize value creation and put it in terms of dollar value. So this is what it is in terms of the rate of investment, return of investment from that initial investment in people. So I don't use and see myself as a volunteer. We see ourselves as social investors. And we monetize the value every time that we invest, and we also expect that it's going to lead to a positive outcome, which is the improvement in the quality of life of people. See, what really matters though is the social value you create. We must have a very clear business model and a business plan because it is a business. As a matter of fact, you have to have better business practices because now you angle things that affect people's life directly. And so accountability and transparency is very important. You know, so you can understand now when you start to check Marcus thing, how Marcus thing go, because Marcus Garvey grow his venture at a time when it was very hostile. Plus, he never have enough people, the skill set to man the ships and all those things. There were certain gaps. This was also being scaled up so rapidly, so the management issue became an issue. So there are many lessons that we have learned from Marcus. So while the businesses are not necessarily operational today, and a man might argue about the financial returns on those investments, what is more valuable to us is the lessons learned and the fact that the idea was there and there's a model being developed. But that model was sabotaged, we know, deliberately and directly by members of the status quo. Because imagine if Marcus could mobilize 3 million people, 4 million people without a lot of money. What if his businesses were allowed to materialize today? The example they want to use is Grace Kennedy, because Grace Kennedy and Marcus Garvey business started around the same time, around 1921. Today, Grace Kennedy is the biggest food company in the Caribbean. And I'm sure that Grace Kennedy had 4 million or 3 million supporters at the time. What if Marcus Garvey business were allowed to sustain himself and not interfere with? It would have been a very, very different thing. Marcus Garvey started with 3 ships in the Black Star Line shipping company. There's no company today in Jamaica that have 3 ships. How many ships would Marcus Garvey have? Especially now that Jamaica is going to be a logistic hub. What would have been the position of Jamaica at the time? This is what the thing when we call foresighting and scenario planning. So if Marcus had done a foresighting thing, he would have seen where 100 years from now, this would have been the size of the company. So if we do that, no, in hindsight, what would have been the success of those businesses if they were not interfered and not sabotaged? You know, sometimes we have so much power within the people.
Today, with social and economic inequality growing worldwide, millions of people are connected by the idea that it is possible to do business on a human scale. That it is possible to make money and do something good for the community. That idea is called social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship is a new and creative approach to business, social engagements, and social services. Today, there are numerous organizations operating worldwide and in our country that we call social enterprises. A social enterprise is just like any other business. Its work is charged at market rates and it generates profit. What makes it a business on a human scale is the way that profit is used. profit serves to fulfill clear social missions. Social enterprises do not serve to enlarge the wealth of their owners or shareholders. They operate in order to contribute to social equality and to improve the living conditions of people in the community. Generated profit is reinvested in the business or in realizing social goals like job creation, social inclusion, cultural needs, healthcare, and preservation of the environment. A social enterprise places social goals ahead of increased profit, uses business as a means of social change, resolves social problems through market strategies. Social entrepreneurship is also a good way for civil society organizations that want to reduce their dependency on donor assistance and gain greater financial and operational freedom. Starting a social enterprise is a challenge for all those to whom profit is not the only goal, who want a job that makes sense and has a purpose. Visit www.sense.r.
Alright, so when you listen to that video, I am saying you can't say exactly well, the same thing that Marcus Garvey was doing about 100 years ago. That video just come out like 10, 15 years ago, you know. See, that's me show you how far ahead Marcus Garvey was. And you can read some of Marcus' work, I'm sure him talk about cooperatives as a way to do it. I know you never have the word called social enterprise at the time. But you can see with the forward thinking of the bridging that if these were opportunities that existed in terms of this thing of social enterprises, he would have been one of the biggest operators of a social enterprise. So social enterprises, I would say we measure the impact to what is called a social rate of return on investment. It's a blended value, because you're making the money value from the businesses, financial return on investment, plus the social value, which is the cost and savings from serving social mission. And that's what gives you that blended value. So, what does that make the official social enterprise? And more you think about Marcus Garvey model, because that's what we're saying it is. Having a very clear social mission or environmental mission. You know, having businesses and trade, you can see it to the Black Star Line and Nuclear Factory Corporation, etc. Reinvest in the profits for further social mission, which is what he did with the Black Cross Nurse, etc. So we're saying this is really seemingly a new concept, not only a new concept, it's all new words. So Marcus Garvey had the model from 1990 in the Caribbean, Central American, African nation. We had Pinnacle's work with Howell, that is Paul Howell's work at Pinnacle in the 1930s. Bob Marley with Tough Gang and Bob Marley Foundation. So them show what is now. They spoke about the Grameen Bank in the 1970s in Bangladesh, where them actually give this money a Nobel Prize for it. But yes, still Marcus Garvey was doing this more than 8 years ago. As a matter of fact, in the Grameen Bank, he got some help from the World Bank. That's not to take away from the work that was done, you know, but I'm showing you that we were doing this work. And across the Caribbean, we have different things we call Susu and them things. Not organized as well, it would have been organized into a bank, but it was a concept that was there. So again, if you check it, if you talk about characteristics, what makes somebody a social entrepreneur? These are some of the characters you need to look amongst yourself and see if you have people like that. That's how we look at Marcus. And say, are you comfortable stretching the rules? Of course, Marcus stretching the rules. Which black man could think about owning ships and trading in Africa in the early 1900s, in a time when racism was so strong and the war just done and Europe was broke and needed money? That's why I overturned Marcus' idea, you know. Because if Marcus was allowed to trade, the whole of Europe get destroyed because they were going into the depression in the 1920s. Remember those things, which led to the World War in the 1940s. So Marcus Garvey was the biggest threat, I think, to the European American status quo at the turn of the century. Are you prepared to make powerful enemies? It's what enemies create. Even amongst black people, the boys and more people were saying negative things about him to Marcus Garvey. Just remember that, you know. Two great minds, they put against each other. Do you have the patience to start small? You have to start small. Marcus wanted to rise fast, but him started small. And that can be an issue in terms of how you manage and scale up operations. Are you willing to shift strategies quickly? Are you a closer? Are you able to finalize and make things get done? See him? No. Look what Timothy said, some of the characters is commitment and determination, leadership, opportunity, obsession, tolerance of risk and ambiguity and uncertainty, creativity, self-reliance and ability to adapt, and the motivation to excel. These are things that are germane to a lot of ONI people, leaders. But Marcus Garvey reflected all of these things that they are saying are the signs of a personal entrepreneur. Note the Carter argue, Garvey emphasized that individual entrepreneurial pursuits, not self-interest, you know. Him not promoting that individual pursuit. Him said it is ineffective. And so emphasize enterprises that takes the form of people doing things together like cooperative structures. That was the structure that was present then. Then we have the idea of what's called a social enterprise. But you can see the practice with the mindset is about a social enterprise business model. See Lewis argue. And again, this Virgin is such a really good Virgin, a very good lecturer, you know, in the university. I'm not there anymore. Professor Emeritus, I know, Rupert Lewis, he was a Marcus Garvey scholar. I find. Seeing Rupert Lewis and soon get some other name of some Virgin who we know support and promote of Marcus Garvey work and things. Let me say that the UNIA business was not Marcus Garvey personal enterprise. It's not his personal business. He never derived any gains from those enterprises. Yes? His enterprise all had international linkages, so he was able to create networks with persons in the majority black diaspora across the world, including the various states in the United States, Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa. We have not even successfully organized CARICOM when all of us come to the same university at the West Indies. And here's a man who the system fight down, was able to create that network across the Americas and establish a business to do trade with Africa. We know that people have challenges and issues and not everything work out, but matter with the mindset and the ability to, as I say, make closure, to move from idea to reality, which is about, from creativity, which is the ideation stage, you know, opportunity recognition and concept development, to implementing, identifying resources, access resources, implement and management, and harvest the venture. That is the process, the on-shop process. This man was able to do this. As in 1988, the man in right. That's what you can't write again. Garvey came to the US at a time when new economic order was anchored to American prosperity. Coming out of the war, America is one who come out more successful, even when they had problems in them country. A sweeping increase in technology, innovation of mass production techniques, and new machinery increased Americans output by 13%, while consequently reducing the workforce by 8%. Poverty was soaring as 29% increase in work productivity was complemented by a 4.5% increase in real wages. Organized African-American unions were suffering as the power of the American capitalists increased. Because that's going on in the war. And again, see, Marcus Garvey felt that blacks should have a set of objectives which manifest through engaging in businesses, either as an employee or employer, wherein the latter is preferred. So yet about being an entrepreneur, business owner. Garvey noted that the role of the entrepreneur was best because it involved creating new enterprises. These enterprises should not be limited to the regular basic store, shop, or farm, which is where we make up the MSMEs and the small business. You have to establish large corporations. If you never do that, he is going to be perilous. Hence the interest in creating a black star line shipping company. Garvey was an international entrepreneur in publishing, shipping, and manufacturing. So I want to cite it in a Virgin. See, I don't check why I far right. Because there are things that Marcus Garvey do and say which I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand why I might do and say those things, giving information and things. See, but I'm saying it's a Virgin, I never stop living denial, man. When we see we have great people amongst the great works, they have to recognize and accept that fire. And as I say, you can cut and paste what Marcus was doing then, but it have relevance to today, and we can apply a lot of what he has done. And the idea and the mission, which is what we have done in Jamaica, you know. And I showed you. So in all our work, it is anchored with the naivety of Rastafari and the things that I learned from Marcus Garvey, both Marcus and Haile Selassie. See, in Marcus Garvey, show I how to deal with things at a national, regional level. Haile Selassie, I show you things at a global level. See, in Rastafari, just teach I just live on a day-to-day basis. So, but look again. So, note, let me say Marcus established the UNIA in 1940. It's an African Communities League. The Black Star Line Company was done in 1919 and Negroes Factoration in 1920. Thing in register. See, the ACL was officially incorporated in 1918 in New York and served as the political and commercial wing of the movement. So you must have money to support politics. See, you must say the heights of American Negro enterprise is not yet reached. You still have a far way to go. You want more stores, more banks, and bigger banks. Control your own germs where you are dealing with and bigger enterprises. If we had those banks, our own bank, we don't worry about people and the ganja. So the model will be the creator and show you, see it? UNIA at the top. Same as the African Communities League that feed into the UNIA, but also there's a direct link between the Communities League and the Negro Scratch Corporation, the business. So all of these things connect back to the ACL. And the funds on the ACL go back up to the UNIA to support the mission. But you see, there's a direct link again. Because once you have money up here, you must also be expanding all of these companies and these businesses again. So it was a closed loop. So it was self-sustained. And the guy must say, Marcus never have no model. You know? So, check in. Marcus is not the only one who had a model. No, Marcus is not the only one who had a model. Other people have models. That's what we always learn. So, no, look at this. What Marcus did. This was a share ticket, you know. A share you buy as a capital stock of $10,000 each shares. $5 each. See? These are share certificates. Now, what Jamaica has done, because we have learned so much and we have applied so much of Marcus in our own design of the MSME policies in Jamaica and the training. Jamaica has established the first English-speaking, I think, social stock exchange by far in the region. Seeing, we're a part of that team. We're passing legislation to make social enterprise legal, registered, and recognized bodies and entities. You know, it is written in the policy. Social enterprise are written in the policy. I draft both the 2018 and the 2024 policy. That is central to it. The development of the social service sector is very central. We emphasize the whole thing of the social service sector, but also directly supporting traditional micro, small, and medium enterprises, because that is how you're going to move your economy forward. So know that Garvey's attempts to establish economic self-reliance went beyond corporate business enterprises, you know. This is not I as far as this is Martin saying this is 1976 fire. UNIA also acts as a community service agency by paying debt and other minor benefits to members. Local divisions were required to maintain a charter fund for the purpose of assisting distressed members or needy individuals of the race. A fund for loans of honor to active members and the Employment Bureau to aid members seeking employment was also established. So check and see. This is not a regular business Marcus doing. It's just now we're talking about these things, brethren. And people in Jamaica, they have a thing about Marcus Garvey a thief, because that's what the status quo was saying. And now them PI, if you start the same way Marcus Garvey attack, and when you say them, say you're bright. And yes, still, you could see that Marcus Garvey was 100 years ahead of all of us. At least 100 years. We have failed social security sectors in Jamaica. People have feared them get rid of all unions. People have feared question what happened to them when they retire. These were ideas. This is a man that I born 1972. See? So 50 years ago, Martin wrote this about Marcus Garvey. 50 years ago, Martin wrote this, published this about Marcus Garvey. See? So note, Carter says in 2002 that the Black Star Line was a landmark in African American history, providing a blueprint in which to build entrepreneurial business ventures. So even though the business itself wasn't successful as we define success, but the imprint put in our mind is a value created. Seeing? So him say Marcus Garvey's plan for African American capital was an enormous development. Garvey's ill-fated business enterprise became the procedural and conceptual model for future achievements in African American economic development. So some people like to talk when through your far end and say, oh, the far have bias. Of course, not bias towards my people. But I'm saying, we call it evidence-based bias, because the evidence is there. And there's nothing wrong with having bias to your people. Let my people try. No stranger can try. See? Look, them said the Negro Scratch Corporation incorporated in 1918. Its objective was to promote African American entrepreneurship in large industrial centers by providing investment capital and technical expertise. Isn't this what we are doing now in Jamaica? Through a DBJ, through a JBDC, through an entire ecosystem that we have created. Isn't it something we are trying to do in the Caribbean? Is it something that we're doing with international development partners through the IADB or the EU or from Canada, trying to build out the micro, small, medium enterprises? But yes, still, we were the ones who fought against Marcus Garvey 100 years ago. How many other persons have come with so many good ideas that to fight down? And 100 years after, we're celebrating them. Seeing? I know people can read them, can read the screen for themselves, you know. But you see, them say Marcus established the Negro Scratch Corporation in Delaware by selling 200,000 shares at $5. That means he had about $1 million. 1 million US being raised in them time. Its objective was to promote African American entrepreneurship in large industrial centers by providing investment capital and technical expertise. The corporation assisted in the development of grocery stores, restaurants, a steam laundry, a millinery store, a tailor, a dressmaking shop, and a business publishing business. Garvey encouraged and established through the NFC a factory that mass produced the first African American dolls. In Garvey's plan, each individual business would be cooperatively owned by the UNIA members and eventually linked into a worldwide system of economic cooperation that stimulated a socialistic planned economy. That's what Lewis wrote 1992. So you can see the idea of collective ownership. So you can see then why when Marcus came forward to Jamaica, both the PNP and the JLP government fight against Marcus Garvey, you know. Even though the one who led the PNP, Norman Man, was them called a Fabian socialist, you know. See it? And then brother Bustamante split and formed the JLP, influenced by the United States as well. 1941. So England influenced one and United States influenced the next, and both them collude and fight them Marcus Garvey because it was argued that Norman Manley actually volunteered to be the prosecuting lawyer in Marcus Garvey case. So I want people to realize those things as well. So note, we are saying Marcus Garvey is a social entrepreneur. And see, Carter again argued that Marcus Garvey's vision is comprehensive and addresses other components, including the social, cultural, and political elements. So with his economic activities, proceeds were also used to carry out his welfare programs and finance media for the dissemination of the social, political, and social cultural philosophy reflected in one God, one aim, one destiny. I never check difference, you know, as a people, you know. I never check different. But you see, when we talk about whether Marcus is a success or a failure, number of factors cause it, some internal, some external. So Martin argued that there are some where Marcus Garvey maybe have been directly responsible for and those which he had little control over. So Carter know that although Marcus Garvey explained that qualified black officers were hard to find, he was criticized for many failures, including lack of sound judgment in appointing subordinates, buying new ships before the existing ones were paying concerns, lack of knowledge of maritime finance and general and business-like manner, running of the shipping companies, some incompetence and sloppiness, including loss of stock certificates and not managing the growth. But you see, these things, I think that people understand. You can't scale operation too fast. You have management issues, plus in an environment that is hostile. So Marcus don't know that, but we have to learn that now, because we see, I will learn. So even them errors that Marcus make, we're not going to make those errors. See, Martin again argue, there's a persistent and malicious attacks from his enemies and numerous newspapers that publish anti-black star line and anti-Garvey materials. I will know them guys that work to undermine the program. Governments also passed laws aimed at black star line stockholders, especially those in Dominica and the Belgian Congo. Them say the greatest blow of all to Marcus shipping ventures came from the craft, thievery, and sabotage of many of his own employees, white engineers, because you never know about black people who are ship people, white engineers of the Yarmouth and Kanawha, destroyed the ships, inflated bills through broad office kickbacks to up to 30%. So, once I will check it, and I know that, as Martin added, without some of these problems, there's no reason why the UNIA shipping ventures would not have been the latest modestly profitable. At least modestly profitable. They would have been very successful. You had a large black population that was there where we could actually get the financing base from and technical resources. We have a strategic location at the center of the world and Pan-African affairs. But we know that when Marcus Garvey appeared, the man said there was savage official repression against radical organization. the UNIA would have been seen as the most radical organization presenting itself in the globe at the time, at the turn of the 1900s, at the end of a war, with a major pandemic, with a flu. You tagged in the place to consolidate Africa and the Caribbean when Europe was planning to further divide Africa and the Caribbean and we have exploiting and rebuild their country after it has been destroyed. So, is Marcus Garvey work still relevant? I think people know that, man. You know, Burning Spirit, we can't play the music in this thing about because of copyright and IP issues. When it's the Burning Spirit music, Marcus Garvey words come to pass. You know, and no one remember old Marcus Garvey. Even my brethren, we say we study Garvey, Dawe Congo, you know. There's so much music, because Jamaican music can keep the whole memory of Marcus Garvey alive, you know. Seeing Marcus Garvey is a big influence. The Sentan people them have a big influence on Jamaican culture generally. See, and I argue that Marcus Garvey work is extremely relevant for you today, especially in the context of the SDGs, because not much has changed over the past 100 years. In many cases, even while the technology might seem different, the oppression is even worse. Seeing? And again, as I always argue, but we learn to appreciate one people brain. You have many more Marcus, and Marcus says them are coming at the whirlwind and them thing demands. You have world for ones who today who have ideas that can seek to shift the reality of our people. And we just neglect those ideas. You still tell about the role of Jamaica and the Caribbean as a global trade center through shipping, which Marcus saw 100 years ago. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Because the UNIA represents the business model that we can now use for something we call social transformation at a community, at a regional level. And again, today we are adopting those things. So I personally give thanks to the work of Marcus because it provides a platform for a whole set of scholarship that I team through the Center for Entrepreneurship Thinking and Practice at University of Western Moon has developed. Seeing, and that include all education. When we were writing the CAPE syllabus, where I was the chief for CAPE, and we write the entire syllabus and a team of people from the entire Caribbean. We wrote about Marcus Garvey as a model in the social enterprise component of the CAPE syllabus. And the same thing followed through to the university degrees that I had a chance to develop as well too. So Marcus Garvey work has contributed to all of those things. The Marcus Garvey work has contributed to policy development in the MSME sector and the formation of the first, I must say, social stock exchange and English speaking in the Caribbean. It again reminds us of the importance of social enterprise and the micro, small, medium enterprises that we have endogenizing growth. Because it's true MSMEs that the money is going to stay in your country and circulate in the community, which is what Marcus was doing. And I always say you can forgive but never forget, you know. And I never forget, you know, because what about folly take place? In the discourse around we call reparation and repatriation. I don't expect a guy to say I give you nothing, you know. Worse than as much economic problem. Seeing? But I still not gonna forget because even today we still see it happen. Where them still walk south with that big stick, you see it. And put in place a system that still time for benefit their people as against our own people. What you see? Our own people who in leadership positions is them need to check themselves. And I know the enslaved mind can't serve free people. So when a man free, him never knows him free because his mind is so enslaved, so him still a work within the objectives of the enslaver. But you know, neuro-linguistic program is a serious thing now. And whenever time I want go in a building, them swear to protect an oppressive monarch rather than swear to serve them people. When that sink in them brain, they are programmed that at all times their first interest and responsibility is to those who enslave them, which is the monarch. So they do everything for feed the monarch and the monarch status quo and not for support them people. So you can fight down Marcus Garvey. Even today, Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, I want people to check this out. They have not been given an honorary PhD. Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, I said before, should have been Professor Emeritus in the era of entrepreneurship from the University of the West Indies. They've not been given that. And if you go on to Google Scholar, which is the authority on how your work has influenced scholarship, when I checked out Marcus Garvey, it was thousands upon thousands. When I check out Bob Marley, it's the same thing. And when I check out Professor Rex Nettlefold, it's about 2,000 and odd references. I think Bob was about 25,000, Marcus was about 8,000, and I'm certain that have changed already. So there's no doubt that these persons' work has created a bigger impact on scholarship and programs and policy and development than anybody else's work through the entire Caribbean, but we still deny them the recognition of the value of them work. Seeing? But I think most important we learn about self-reliance and collective security, you know. As an individual, if you get yourself strong, independent, you have to be independent. And if strong, independent people come together as a collective, as a cluster, will become even stronger. Seeing? And it's through the embracing of those ideas of self-reliance and collective security, which is a philosophy that drives entrepreneurship, you know. Seeing? It's that drive entrepreneurship, but through embracing that philosophy and using innate innovativeness and creativity, which is something which is germane to all Caribbean people. When you do that, then you're going to establish a really sustained dynamic for development. But failure to do so, we're going to continue to see whereby very innovative and creative youths who don't get a chance to express that innovativeness and creativity in the formal space will find a space to express it in the informal illegal space. And we know what the research shows, Ram Shumpita, in terms of the relationship between the criminal mind and the entrepreneur, it is one and the same. So we are in a position to build a platform that allowed you them to take the path of the road not taken. The space where them can transform them ideas into meaningful goods and services to generate sustained forms of wealth. Where you say if the head of the stream is not clean, we know what is going to happen. And so the failings that we see in our society is not about the mass of the people. It's usually because of bad decisions made by a person like ourselves who sit on boards that head countries across the Caribbean. If we just embrace our innate Caribbeanness and Jamaicanness, whereby we know that any problem we see is not a problem because we concept as a statement, Jamaica no problem. It is an opportunity to provide a good and service. If we just embrace that part of INI people, we'll truly manifest what is a vision statement for Jamaica. Not the statement that says Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. You know. That is the broad vision statement. The real vision statement for Jamaica is Jamaica no problem. So if we embrace ourselves, our true selves, if Caribbean people embrace them Caribbeanness, we'll really have a region where we can say Jamaica or the Caribbean, no problem. You know? But we continue to recognize the work of Marcus Garvey and many other people who have influenced our region's development. I know that whatever the region needs, we don't have to go outside the region. We have the brain here, so man. We have the scholarship here, so we have the mindset. The hope is that the people who are in parliament abandon that neo-colonialist, neoliberalist, Euro-American socialization and do what they know they're supposed to do, which is to use them brain and them talent to establish a platform that allows people to transform ideas from ideas into enterprises. And there's no better model to look at than a Marcus Garvey. That bridging work is phenomenal. See, so give thanks.